making an animated Disney film. Walt Disney and his writers started plotting out a story scene by scene. Then, animators drew each character in thousands of different poses to create the action. Inkers traced the lines of each drawing on pieces of clear celluloid. Painters colored on the celluloid drawings. Other artists painted background scenes. After camera operators photographed each drawing on the right background, sound specialists recorded the voices and sound effects, and added in the background music. Once everything was done, there was still one more thing needed. Walt had to give his final approval. Chapter 5. Hollywood. After World War I, Hollywood became home to the film studios such as Universal, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM. Movies were now a big business. In August of 1923, Walt packed a cardboard suitcase with his clothes and drawing materials. He bought a train ticket to California, where his older brother Roy was already living. Walt moved in with an uncle, paying a few dollars a month for room and board. Walt had big dreams for himself, but he certainly didn't look like much of a success. He was stick-thin and wore shabby clothing. He spiffed himself up as best he could and went to every movie studio in town. Nobody offered him a job, so he went back to his old idea of making and selling cartoons. In October, he finally got a break. A woman named Margaret Winkler saw and liked what Walt had done in Alice's Wonderland. She agreed to pay for Walt for a series of Alice cartoons, which she would sell to theaters. This was terrific news, except for one thing. Walt had only 3 months to make a new film. His young actress, Virginia Davis, still lived in Kansas City. Also, Walt needed money to make the movie. He didn't even have a movie camera, much less a studio or artists to work with him. Walt turned to his brother Roy for help. Roy was 8 years older than Walt. Unlike Walt, Roy was practical. He had a good head for business. So the two formed the Disney Brothers Studio. With a loan from their uncle and some money from their parents, Walt and Roy set up shop in a small office on Kingswell Avenue. Walt bought himself a movie camera, and he persuaded Virginia Davis and her family to move to Hollywood. At first, Walt did all the creative work in the studio. He thought up the story for each of the Alice movies. He directed his child star. He drew all the cartoon characters and put the live action and animation together. He worked so hard that his first film was finished ahead of schedule. But making a whole series of Alice films was too much work for one man. So Walt hired 3 men to operate the cameras and help with the animation. He also hired 3 women to ink and paint the black and white cartoon drawings. One of the young women was small and pretty, with dark hair. She was named Lillian Bounds. Walt also worried that his own drawings were not good enough. He wanted his cartoon films to be the best in the business, so he got in touch with Ub Iwerks. Walt convinced Ub to move out to California and join the Disney studio. Ub was talented and fast. He could produce great drawings in no time. Over the years, Ub did more and more of the drawing, while Walt focused on thinking up the stories and directing. Together, they created a new character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and started making a series of Oswald cartoons. It was a smart decision. Oswald was a hit. The studio began selling cartoons on a regular basis. Business was so good, in fact, that Walt and Roy moved to bigger offices on Hyperion Avenue. And Walt changed the name of his company. Instead of Disney Brothers Studio, he wanted to call it Walt Disney Studios. Did Roy mind? It seems that he didn't. All Roy said was, "If that's the way you want it." It was okay with him. After all, Walt was the one making the cartoons. Walt was under a lot of pressure now. He had to make lots of Oswald cartoons and do it quickly. He became short-tempered and irritable. He took his worries out on his employees. Some quit because they couldn't stand the insulting remarks. "Walt would make you feel bad when he wanted to," one of them said. "Then something really nasty happened. something Walt never expected and didn't deserve. A man named Charlie Mintz, whose company was buying Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoons, hired away most of Walt's artists. Mintz decided he didn't need Walt anymore. With Walt's own artists, he could make and sell Oswald cartoons without Walt Disney Studios. What Charlie Mintz did wasn't actually against the law, but it was still wrong. Walt was so upset that he couldn't eat or sleep. Not only had he lost Oswald, but he had been double-crossed. The only way that he could save his business was to create another cartoon character, an even better one than Oswald. Walt worked like mad, and a new idea kept in secret. Only a few people, Ub, who did the drawing, Roy, who was always loyal to his brother, and Lillian, who inked the drawings, knew about the new character. The new character was going to be a mouse.